Get your, yeah. Get your hands up, yeah. To the floor, yeah. Yeah.
That's right.
Come down, selector.
That's right. Come on.
Okay, hi everyone. Welcome. Welcome to Women in STEM Part 2. This is Leaders of Change. So today we are celebrating International Day of Women and Girls in STEM. Happy International Day of Women and Girls in STEM, by the way. And we have a lovely agenda put together for you all. We have 6 amazing panelists who will be speaking, so stay tuned for that. But first of all, I would like to pass you over to Miss Amara Bihari, the FSC Student Council Department of Physics representative, to give you a little introduction to this day.
A pleasant good afternoon, Honorable Minister of Education, respected Dean and heads of department, professors, lecturers, and everyone joining us live for part 2 of our Women in STEM event, Leaders of Change. My name is Amara Bihari, and I am the Physics Department representative on the Student Council, and it is my esteemed honor to give this opening address. I'd like to begin by wishing everyone a happy International Day of Women and Girls in Science. Welcome to all our panelists. From the Department of Mathematics, we have Dr. Alana Sanka. From the Department of Physics, we have postgraduate student, Ms. Jessie Ramkalwan. From the Department of Chemistry, we have Dr. Patria Facey. From the Department of Life Sciences and Industry Experience, we have Ms. Sweelan Renaud. From the Department of Engineering, we have Dr. Shri Griffith Charles. And finally, from the Department of Computer Science, we have Dr. Phaedra Mohammed. We are so grateful to have such accomplished, diligent role models here with us today, and I hope you all take advantage of the opportunity to listen to their stories, heed their advice, and ask any questions you'd like to later on. What does it truly mean to be a woman in science, technology, engineering, and/or mathematics? Historically, women were pushed to the humanities or indoctrinated to prioritize household duties, but thankfully, we've seen society shifting towards "Mama, I'm a rich man" now. Everyone should be allowed to pursue the fields that they'd like to, and events like this are crucial and defining moments in molding young ladies to see what they can achieve. Seeing strong, independent, successful women in fields they wish to pursue encourage them that they can do it too. Hence, the primary purpose of this event is to empower women in STEM, to encourage women to participate, to lead, to witness success by fellow women in their own fields, and to not be scared. I challenge you all to face your fears head on. Look in the mirror and tell yourself these words: I am beautiful, I am brave, and I am brilliant. I assure you, the self-confidence that you have by hyping yourself up, no one can stand in the way of you and your dreams. As Emma Watson said, if not me, who? If not now, when? I hope you never let doubtful voices stop you from following your dreams. And I'll close with a quote by Michelle Obama. There is power in allowing yourself to be known and heard, in owning your story and using your voice. I hope you follow your dreams and tell your stories. Take every opportunity to be the best person that you can be. Thank you once again for this opportunity and for your time. I do hope everyone enjoys the rest of the event. I'll now hand over to our FSC Student Council's Gender Affairs Representative, Ms. Michaela Hussein, who will take us through today's proceedings. Thank you, everyone.
Yes, thank you, Mara. That was such a lovely and touching introduction to this event. I feel empowered already. So I would like to, as Amara said, introduce myself a little bit. I am the Gender Affairs Representative for the Faculty of Science and Technologies Student Council. And I don't know who was here yesterday, but we had a part 1 to this event, which was really fun. And I recommend that you go check out the recording on YouTube. If we can, I don't know if we could post that in the YouTube chat. Yeah, that would be nice. Right, yes. So next on the agenda, we have ministerial remarks. So we have been privileged with remarks from the Honorable Minister of Education, Dr. Nyan Gadsby Dolly. So I will take you straight into that. No more delays.
Guild President, Mr. Kobe Sandy, Guild Faculty of Science and Technology, FST, Representative, and FST Council President, Mr. Jeremiah Mathura, Guild Faculty of Engineering Representative and Engineering Students Society President, Ms. Chelsea Best, FST Student Council Gender Affairs Representative, Ms. Michaela Hussein, panelists, staff and students of the Faculties of Science and Technology and Engineering, members of the media, specially invited guests. Today, we celebrate the achievement of women in STEM, and I join all women and girls around the world as a proud woman in STEM. This celebration means acknowledging students, professionals, and the female explorers in these fields of science, technology, engineering, and mathematics. This celebration also means recognizing and commending those who support us and our presence in these traditionally male-dominated spaces. If there is one thing that the current pandemic has brought into sharp focus, it is the importance of celebrating every single milestone along our individual and collective journey. Many refer to the time we live in as times of uncertainty, but I would like us to invoke the paradigm shift that I'm sure we've all been exposed to. We are living in a time of opportunity. Opportunity for creativity, innovation, and even discovery. we are reminded of many wonderful journeys of women who are involved in STEM. And our new normal has challenged our educational systems, and human resources are strained. But it has forced us to create new ways to achieve targets set out of this new normal. And to be frank, this normal is no longer new. So I think we can just say our normal as we know it now. My sisters in STEM, I call on you today to reflect on the journey of those ladies who've gone before, those that are doing us proud now, and those waiting to follow in our path. Yeah, those waiting, looking at us today, wanting to follow in our path. I draw to your attention as well the fact the pandemic of 2019 and continuing even now to 2022 has forced some of our sisters to be derailed. Girls are more likely to have fallen out of the school system, especially in underdeveloped countries, than boys. And therefore, the effect of the pandemic on girls and their academic trajectory has been a bigger challenge than for boys globally. And that affects, in years that will be subsequent to this, how many of our girls may be involved in STEM. Just something for us to consider. I graduated in 1999, seems like eons ago, with a BSc in analytical chemistry. I went on to upgrade from my MPhil chemistry to a PhD. And after what could be described as an arduous journey, I received my PhD in organic chemistry from UWI. As a woman in STEM, we face different challenges because we also have to develop in a way that society expects of us. And society expects us to do the normal journey, getting married, becoming mothers. And this is what we face, these expectations, along with all that is given to us in our academic journey. So, along with my sisters, way back in 1999, the early 2000s, I walked the halls, sat on the benches, draft at midnight, played football in the quadrangle. I was here when the first KFC came up on the campus. I was here when we used to call the cafeteria the Big Caf. It was a small caf too. And my journey on campus was really setting the stage for my journey in life. So many stories, so many experiences. But what stood out for me is that my academic trajectory prepared me to be a logical, critical thinker, a solution-oriented optimist with a creative soul. And that's what science can do for you. That's what involvement in STEM brings to the table. And I owe it all to my teachers, my fellow classmates who would have created the experience that I benefited so greatly from. And allow me a minute to just speak to women, to us, women, upon whom expectations are put, not just academically, but also in terms of society. And as we enter these non-traditional spaces, sometimes we feel pressured because there's so much of that expectation, and sometimes we feel we have to conform to being au courant with the man-made stereotypes, the male stereotypes. And sometimes we feel we have to be less of a woman to be involved in these spaces. But we don't have to be. We don't have to compromise our femininity. We don't have to overcompensate. We have to bring what our brand of STEM is to this market and not be apologetic for that. We have to celebrate, as much as we celebrate our successes in STEM, we have to celebrate our womanhood as well. And we have to journey in our own way. So let's never apologize for being a woman in a male-dominated space or feel we have to become male to succeed in this space. We can do it our way. And I'd like to turn my attention to those who support the journey of women in STEM. From a government standpoint, anyone in Trinidad and Tobago, any child, has the opportunity to study whatever area. And so there's no gender barrier in terms of studying and getting involved in STEM. And that's important for us to recognize because we may take it for granted, but certainly not every country in the world has that even playing field for boys and girls. And as we think about that as well, we also have to consider that there's also the matter of respect. And so even though women can be involved in STEM, we have to ensure that we demand the same respect as our male counterparts in this male-dominated space. I take this opportunity to commend the University of the West Indies Faculty of Science and Technology Student Council for taking this step to have this important, transformative conversation while celebrating our brave and determined women. By utilizing International Day of Women and Girls in Science to draw attention to us and to advance discussions on the challenges which we face as women in making our contribution, you have made a clear statement of support for women in STEM. Not just support, but respect. You are recognizing and highlighting the nuances of our existence in this space and drawing attention to the sometimes harsh realities and expectations that we face. Some of them we put on ourselves as women. The Ministry of Education is currently engaged in national consultation on our Education Policy 2022 to 27 under the theme Education Passport to the Future. And I want to encourage everyone to take part in this discussion. And as we celebrate women in STEM, we want to create the atmosphere, the enabling environment for more girls to be involved in non-traditional spaces. And your voice in this consultation can help us to make the policies that do just that. In closing, I'd like to commend my fellow women once again for what is emerging as our leadership role in STEM. And we celebrate today not just the work and the successes of those that went before, but of us, we women who are involved now in STEM, and of those women coming up, those girls who will follow our example and will walk the path that we tread for them to do. My fellow women in STEM, congratulations to you. And those who are attentive to us in this space, thank you for showing us that respect. Thank you, and may God bless us all.
And that's again another inspiring speech from our very own Minister of Education. And did you know that she did analytical chemistry? Because I did not know that. So that is not an easy subject. I would say I did an introductory course to it, but it was fun. It was fun. So we have a very packed agenda today, and I would like to go into introducing our first speaker for this event, which will be Dr. Phaedra Mohammed, who will be speaking from a computer science and information technology perspective. So if you have any DCIT friends who are not here, please tell them to come now, because Dr. Phaedra Mohammed is a computer science lecturer at the Department of Computing and Information Technology at the University of the West Indies, St. Augustine campus. You may know her if you do DCIT courses. Her research focuses on the use of artificial intelligence applied to education for developing computational models of culture and techniques for modeling, generating, and recognizing natural language. Her current projects involve building intelligent tutors for spelling and literacy in the Caribbean, and the digitization of the Dictionary of English Creole of Trinidad and Tobago. Did you know that was possible? Dr. Phaedra Mohammed, I bring you to the floor.
Thanks, Michaela. Thanks for having me. So the DCIT students may not be here because I think they have an assignment due. So I was asked to speak about my experiences, my challenges, and any advice I might have for students in this field, and particularly women in this field. Traditionally, computer sciences has been dominated by men. That's been studied for a very long time, and it's changing very slowly. So I have three basic pieces of, I guess, advice or observations that helped me during my time as an undergraduate student, as a graduate student, and also now as a faculty member. So the first thing I would say is that foundations matter. Foundations here being the core knowledge for computer science or information technology. Now, many students tend to gripe, why am I learning this old stuff? Why can't I just use an API and get this code to work much more quickly? Why do I have to do everything from scratch? Foundations matter. Reason being that most of the tech that we use nowadays is built essentially on these foundations. And yes, you can go about reusing things, but what happens when you want to be creative and you want to build your own special tool, conduct some research, or start your own spin-off company? Essentially, in a typical degree, students would go through all of the foundational knowledge, and the types of systems that we have now in the consumer area, or basically what people use, that took decades to get there, right? So I don't know if any of you guys ever researched the history behind voice technologies and personal assistants like Siri, Alexa, Cortana, and so on. These technologies were built in labs decades ago. And only now that the technology started to get, it's not good, right? It's not perfect, but it's surprising. So that has led so many companies to switch the way that they are now building interactive systems. So therefore, it takes some time to get to that stage. So my advice would be to study those foundations, especially if you want to get into traditional computer science areas that are highly theoretical, that are highly mathematical, right? These are the areas that tend to spawn off a lot of the technologies that we enjoy nowadays. For instance, you would hear buzzwords like machine learning and big data and AI. A lot of those techniques and technologies are older than I am. Not that I'm old, but they've been on the research shelves for decades, and they were just sitting there because the time was not right. We didn't have powerful machines to support those kinds of models. We didn't have enough data to support the kinds of inferencing and analytics that are now pretty much sweeping the fields. So my advice, if you want to study something in computer science, it doesn't matter which area. So there are things like algorithms and complexity. That's more on the high end of theory side. And then you have things like software engineering, which is closer to user experience and usability end of things. Dip into the foundations, really, really cement yourself. The second bit of advice is that you should start breaking down any kind of problem that you want to solve into small steps, small problems that you can do. And this was particularly useful for me, discovered this a bit late, in my graduate career. The field that I'm in is a very ill-defined multidisciplinary one. So it's pulling from areas like linguistics, artificial intelligence, sociocultural modeling, educational psychology, learning science, statistics. Break down a problem into smaller steps. And this piece of advice came to my attention when I was looking to figure out, well, how do I determine whether a research problem is worthwhile, or how can I figure out something is, how do I figure out whether a problem is good for study? And this was coined by a famous American scientist called Jim Gray, a guy I know, but they do have good advice. And he won a Turing Award in the late 90s for his work on database systems or transaction processing specifically. And he has 4 criteria for basically specifying whether something can be a high impact research. Have clear benefit, simple or easy to state, has no obvious solution, don't want to reinvent the wheel, and it can be broken down into finite steps that are testable, that are solvable, right? So each one of these can now be the stepping stones towards solving a very complex problem. So that's my second bit of advice. My third bit of advice is to persist and practice. Everything takes time. It takes about just over 2 months to build a habit. And this is not even talking computer science. This is just like talking if you want to wake up early. So persistent practice, small steps eventually accrue. And it's particularly difficult, I would say, nowadays, because we are so instantly gratified. It's staggering how quickly you can find the answer to any question that you can conceive on a search engine. So that ability to turn off, go down to the paper-based versions of things. So I tend to write a lot. I tend to use the time to switch off the technology, and it gives me that, I would say, washout period to completely just rest and practice, right? So yes, you can now do things online, you can code, you can build your programs, but you should start to read them. No joke. Print out the program, find a printer. I know people nowadays are like, well, I don't really print things. So funny story. I use an editor for writing code called VS Code, Visual Studio Code. Tip for ComSci students, it's super fun. Shameless plug. But there was no print button, right? There was no print option on the menu. And I thought that was odd. So then I talked to some of my friends, talked to some of my colleagues, and they were like, they never printed a program. But breaking these things down into small steps, persisting a little bit at a time, this is how you build capacity for this field. This is how you build confidence. This is how you build competence, but it takes time. And a very interesting thing that I learned probably last week from a talk was that because of this pandemic, because of the lockdowns, people are leaving their jobs in staggering rates, really. And it was actually something that another researcher called the Great Resignation. So he's a psychologist out of A&M, Texas University, I think. And basically he said that, this sort of trend may happen, but the rate at which it's happening right now is unheard of. And the reasons for why people are leaving their jobs is because being at home causes them to reevaluate what is important. So in the tech field, it's a very high intensity, very difficult field to be in because it changes so rapidly. The competition is high and the turnover rates are quite high as well, especially when talent is in great demand. So these flexible work arrangements have now become an incentive for many companies. So this is why women now have that edge, I would say, because yes, we have to now manage our families. You probably would have seen my daughter sneak across there to the printer to get her some paper. This is the reality of life, right? You have your families, you have people that depend on you, that you love, that you are doing all of this for. So now is actually a really great time for women to get into tech. It's not easy. It never was. And it's not going to change and become super easier. But it's a very good time right now to step in. So those are my 3 pieces of advice, right? Foundations matter. Persist, practice, and put in that time and be patient and then break down your problems into small steps. And that, I would say, is probably has helped me through a lot of the different challenges that I experienced. Fortunately, not very much discrimination. I'm very thankful for the environment that we are in the Caribbean. It's unlike any, I would say. So that's my 2 cents or 3 cents, 3 points. I hope you enjoy the rest of the afternoon. So thank you for having me.
Yes, thank you for that, Dr. Mohammed. I really like how you were precise with your advice. You know, a lot of people say very generalistic things, but you were very specific. And I'm sure not only the ComSci students, but all of us as UE students would appreciate some of that information. I have 2 questions to ask you because I know you have to leave a little early. So I wanted to know, like, do you have a female role model in computer science or otherwise, it don't have to be in the field, that you look up to, that, you know, inspires you?
Well, I wouldn't say it's one person, right? I tend to sample from many different sources because we're all flawed, right? We all have strengths and weaknesses. So I tend to sample from different people. But if anything, it's some of my colleagues, and they're in my age range, and there are men and there are women. So there's no one person that I isolate as a woman who's, you know, really, you know, cutting the field up. But if I had to say there was an institution that I admire, it's the Anita Borg Institution. So I'm going to put that link. Perhaps you will be able to share it with your viewers. So I'm putting it there. So this, I really like the work that they do, right? I look up to, well, I wouldn't say I look up, but I observe their drives towards bringing women into the field. I really like how they've transformed from, you know, a group of 12 women in the late 80s, who just fed up of being at conferences with men and said, you know what, we're going to do our own thing, to now a multi-million-dollar organization that pumps that money back into research for women.
Wow.
Not a short answer, but.
No, that's okay. We appreciate that. And thank you for the link because we will share that. We got a question from Savan. Dr. Mohammed, any tips for VS Code? How do I know what extensions to use? I tried for Python and I got a lot of recommendations from Microsoft for extensions that don't work.
All right, so technical question, rather depends on the language. So you identified Python. Basically, you would want to go with the debugging tools, the syntax highlighters, and go for the extensions that have been vetted by the community. Because these are kind of, you can consider them to be very, very much like apps where you can have highly rated ones. You can have some that, you know, not very many people use. So you can use that as an indicator. But I would probably say do some research and go for the ones that are very much, you know, in demand.
Thank you for that. And I just had one more thing to ask. How do you, balance your work with your family life? Like, has there been a challenge with that?
There is no balance. It's constant flux, constant up and down. A balance means you stay static, or you don't move. It's not like that. How do I do it? A lot of prayer, right? That keeps me grounded, keeps me mindful of what we have to be grateful for. And we're human. We slip at some things and we give at others. So it's really about, finding that perspective. What I do and what works for me is, and I know your viewers would balk at this, but I get up before sunrise, and I usually go outside to see the sun rise. And I spend about an hour, if I can squeeze it and my kids don't wake up, 2 hours, nice time. I do a lot of reading, a lot of thinking, reflection, and try to exercise, try to stretch. And that sets my mood for the day so that I'm able to not be as tense, not be as focused on deadlines. I can help, help have a buffer.
Yes, that's really nice advice. I get you, because a lot of the times you're right. It's never like one balance. It's always in fluctuation, and centering yourself is always good, because it can get hectic. So thank you very much, Dr. Mohammed. I really enjoyed your speech, and we will now move on to our second speaker, who will be from the Department of Mathematics and Statistics, Dr. Alana Sanka. I know a lot of you know her already as well, especially if you've been taught maths. I did maths 115 with Dr. Sanka, and she is currently an instructor with the Department of Mathematics and Statistics of the UWI St. Augustine. She entered the UWI in 2006 after having gained a national scholarship in mathematics. She attained a Bachelor of Science, double major in mathematics and computer science with first-class honors in 2009. Having a passion for learning and an urge to further knowledge in mathematics at the UWI, she immediately proceeded to a Master of Science in Mathematics, from which she graduated in 2011 with distinction. She was awarded a UWI postgraduate scholarship and pursued a PhD in mathematics, which she completed in 2018. Since September 2009, she has been working at the UWI in the Department of Mathematics and Statistics. Her main research is in fluid dynamics, specifically in the mathematical modeling of blood flow. She has published her research in academic journals and has done oral and poster presentations at conferences. She has also served the campus community on the Trinity Hall Committee and as a resident assistant from 2010 to 2014. In addition to her teaching, she is also currently the coordinator and a tutor at the Mathematics Help Center at the UWI. I bring you to the stage, Dr. Sanka.
Hi, good evening, everyone. I would like to firstly thank the organizers of this event for the opportunity to be a part of this celebration and, of course, this esteemed panel. I begin by wishing you all a happy International Day of Women and Girls in Science 2022. And today I can say I am indeed proud to be a woman in science. But how did my journey all begin? Well, growing up as a child, I definitely would never have said that I wanted my dream job to be a scientist or even a mathematician. But somewhere along the road, I fell in love with mathematics and computer science, and there really was no turning back for me. I considered myself a logical thinker. I still do, so naturally this helps my ability to grasp mathematics. My interest in science began in Form 1 during integrated science at Holy Faith Convent, Hoover. We had to do some hands-on projects like purifying water and building a model volcano. So my interest was piqued from then, and my full attention to mathematics caught on later around Form 4. During my stay at that school and continued journey to Naprima Girls, I had several female mathematics teachers who were so excited about mathematics that their excitement was fueled into me actually becoming keen on the subject area. I excelled in this area, as was mentioned, and I attained the National Scholarship in Mathematics. And I decided to choose the UWI to pursue my passion, which is mathematics and computer science. So when I began my journey as a scientist at the UWI, it was a bit intimidating as a woman entering a highly male-dominated field. But personally, I just tried my best to not let that hinder my progress. In the department, I was also the first to conduct research in the area of the blood flow modeling. So I had a few hurdles to overcome with respect to research in that area, but over time, I was able to rise to the challenge. But for me, it definitely was not a smoothly paved road. I was fortunate as well to have had the opportunity to meet other brilliant female researchers from the Mona campus who had done similar research in this field. In my research life, I remember in particular, through my PhD studies, I encountered a really low moment in a low point in my life as a scientist. In particular, I was working on a particular problem, and it took me like about 7 months, and I was doing that problem, and I wasn't getting substantial results. So at that point, I honestly felt like throwing in the towel on science. However, I was fortunate to push past and having a supportive family and friends and very hardworking PhD supervisors, Dr. Rao Gunakala and Dr. Daya, who stood by my side and encouraged me to focus on the positive achievements and the positive milestones rather than on the negative situation. And I would say as well, what really kept me going along my scientific path was the feedback and support of my students at the UE. The kind words and support I got from students over the years really kept me going. So they would laugh at my jokes I make in class and the corny math memes that I put up on the screen. That really really excited me to see that students were understanding maths, and they really appreciated the way that I was able to take a difficult concept and was able to break it down in such a way that they understood. And even just seeing the excitement of the students who showed up to all my 8 a.m. classes, that course you mentioned as well, the Math 11-15, when we have those 8 a.m. classes, sometimes I would see students religiously sitting there waiting for me. That really kept me going and kept me inspired as well. So now it is my intention to continue this and to guide and support the upcoming generation of mathematicians. So apart from guiding my current students, well, now we are in virtual classrooms, and those that I meet on the virtual Math Help Center where I currently work, I'm also keen on guiding the younger generation. So as a member of the FST Outreach Committee, pre-pandemic, I remember my favorite memory was going to a primary school where we created and we carried some math-oriented games for the students to play to celebrate Numeracy Day. So the excitement in their little faces as they tried to figure out these games and they participated, that really touched my heart. I'm also involved in engaging students at the secondary school level. Since its inception in 2018, I've been part of the UE Math Fair, which is an event targeting secondary school students to spark their interest in mathematics. This year, I'm coordinating the second virtual UE Math Fair scheduled for the Friday, 11th of March. And it is a combination of online competitions and events for secondary school students, teachers, as well as tertiary students this year. As a girl in science, I would say I was lucky to have had full and equal access to participate in science. In schools, as far as I could remember, all the clubs and activities, they were always open to everyone. And I felt like I could just take advantage of that and do what it is I was really interested in. And even at the UE, I would say. So I stayed at 2 halls of residence, the Trinity Hall and the Freedom Hall. For me, they were both different experiences. Then both of them, I won't trade those experiences for anything in this world. As a resident assistant at Trinity Hall for several years, which is the all-female hall, I felt so empowered being among so many young, strong, talented, brilliant women and brilliant, Caribbean minds, that we could all come together and share life experiences, share culture, and share scientific ideas as well. That was really a great experience for me. But I understand that right now in science, women have been playing and continue to play a key role in the fight against the coronavirus, which is really commendable. Because during the COVID-19 pandemic, it has become quite challenging for women, especially those in the early stages of their academic career, to survive. Some female scientists may even consider a change of career path due to job insecurity and availability of jobs in the field of science and mathematics. And I think this is quite alarming, as COVID-19 may have driven away persons from pursuing their traditional educational paths to more pandemic-oriented careers. So on this International Day of Women and Girls in Science, I want to urge you to follow your passion, follow your dreams, follow your desires. And to me, a really important point is to just be yourself. While having role models are important, don't compare yourself to other women. Just live your life, do the best that you can do and be. And I know that sometimes it may seem like you're taking one step, as you take one step forward, you're forced to take two backward. I have been there as well, but I just want to urge you to never give up. So although we as women as well may seem outnumbered in a highly male-dominated environment, we need to develop the emotional intelligence to rise above this fact in achieving our goals and to pave the way for many other female scientists to follow. We really have to remember that women are in fact agents of change. So I do believe that there's a need to ensure the full and equal access and participation for women and girls in science. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Dr. Sankar. That was lovely. And I really didn't even think about how, people are being driven more into pandemic-oriented careers. That was an interesting point, but she is so right. You pursue what you are passionate about, because if you're not passionate about something, it's going to be very hard to enjoy your life doing it. So I got one quick question from Kyra. How have you dealt with failures and or grades that did not satisfy you? What are your pieces of advice that you can give to students to bounce back or learn from their mistakes?
So yes, so in my life, as I had mentioned in the talk, there were some low points where you really think you're not getting it or you really need to try. But the advice that I give is a matter of never giving up. Having this attitude that you can try something else. You can try harder, right? Or you could try more creative ways. Find something that works for you. If you find like the material, you may not learn it in one way, try to find something else that would cater to your learning style, or something that would help you along the way. So I think the idea of never giving up, finding something that works for you is really important, and reaching out for help as well, right? So, sometimes we tend to, myself included, we tend to keep your struggles and things like that, but know that there's always help, and there's always different people, different facilities that would be able to help you along your journey.
Thank you very much for that. I'm sure it will inspire all of the women here today. And I'd just like to mention also, Dr. Sankar is a veteran in this Women in Science event panel, because the FSC Student Council had one last year actually, but it wasn't Women in STEM, it was Women in Science. So she was there, and now she's here again supporting us. So I just want to say a big thank you for that. And I think that's all the questions we've got for now. So we'll go on straight to the next panelist, who will be Dr. Petria Facey. For all those of you in organic chemistry, that's what Dr. Facey is specialized in. Her research interests are endophytes, which are bacterial or fungal microorganisms which spend the whole or part of their life cycle inside the healthy tissues of the host plant, typically causing no apparent symptoms of the disease. The relationship between the endophyte and its host plant may range from latent phytopathogenesis to mutualistic symbiosis. That is, the endophytes get nutrition and protection from the host plant, and in return, they protect the host plant by producing certain functional metabolites. Mangrove plants are of interest as they are assemblages of salt-tolerant coastal trees which are widely found here in the Caribbean. Dr. Facey is a lecturer at the University of the West Indies in organic chemistry, and I would now like to pass you on to her to hear her words of wisdom.
Thank you so much for the invitation. I really appreciate being a part of this esteemed panel. I have learned so much so far. I am already encouraged and motivated. And so I hope that as we share, continue to share, that we can learn from each other and continue to grow. So as I'm sharing my journey with you, so as you know, I'm Jamaican, I'm not from Trinidad. I'm actually just here over a month now, but I have been teaching online from Jamaica for the past year and a half. And I want to share my journey with you in 3 sections, where it all began. You know, atoms are the building blocks, the foundations, where did it all begin? The challenges, you know, as chemists, we have to do a lot of chemical testing and sometimes the reaction doesn't work. What are the challenges that I face? And what are the successes? At the end of the day, we are able to create formulas that work because of the successes that we have gained. So I grew up in a very small town in Western Jamaica, but I was born to 2 teachers. Both my parents were teachers. And so unlike other children who got toys for gifts, I got books. And so I immersed myself a lot in reading and the world of books. And from that, I got hooked on science and the wonder of the world around me. So as my curiosity continued to be sparked, I got an interest in science. Now I'll share a funny story with you. I remember one Christmas, my aunt sent us a package, gifts from overseas. And in that package were shoes for each of us, me and my siblings. Unfortunately, I have big feet. And so the shoes that came for me couldn't fit. And it is where the scientific mind came in as a child. I was 8 years old. I remember crying and saying to my mom, I'm going to find a way, a chemical, to shrink my feet so that my feet can fit in those shoes. So already I understood from my reading and from my exposure to persons around me that the whole idea of science is about finding solutions, about solving problems, about answering the question, what if? And delving into different ways in which you can find an answer to the challenges around us. So that sparked my interest in science and how we can solve problems. So I continued that trajectory, doing science in high school, secondary school. Well, fortunately, I went to an all-girls school, and everybody who was considered to be brilliant, in quotation mark, were challenged or channeled into the field of medicine. So everybody in the class, if you ask them, what do you want to be? I want to be a doctor. And so I didn't think about other areas of study. I was singularly focused on becoming a doctor. Unfortunately, I was also very active in high school in other activities. I was in about 10 different clubs, and I was serving on different committees. And unfortunately, the challenges started. That balance between work and other activities, I wasn't so good at it at all. And so I did very poorly on my GC A-level exams. So unfortunately, I didn't get into medicine. And so I went to, at the time it was called Pre-Applied Science, FST at Mona. And I did chemistry, I did mathematics, and I did physics. And chemistry was my weakest subject. I struggled with chemistry. I did well in maths and I did well in physics, but I struggled with chemistry. And my first semester I did horribly. So of course, still get into med. So at the end of my first year, I was now faced with a decision. What am I going to do? But I had a very interesting organic chemistry class. My lecturer was engaging. He made it fun. And I decided I'm going to continue with chemistry. Of course, everybody was shocked because chemistry was my weakest subject. And from there, I went on. And what was interesting for me is that when I look back at my high school years, I never saw scientists or women role models. All I saw were persons who were doctors as females. I never saw researchers or scientists who were women. I only knew of Madame Curie. I never saw anyone like me and that I could look up to as a woman scientist or a woman chemist. And so when I decided to continue to do my PhD in chemistry, I remember seeing a couple of my colleagues and my former student friends in high school, and they were all shocked because that was just not where they expected me to be. But as I decided, I continued to work in this area, and there were many challenges. There were times when my research wasn't going the way it wanted it to go. And there are times when I felt like giving up because I wasn't getting the results that I was expecting. But I had a goal and I was determined to finish. So at the end of the day, I was able to complete my PhD. And so in all this testing, what I learned is that I developed resilience. I was able to achieve because I understood that no success comes easily. And in every challenging situation, there are lessons to learn. And I never understood what those challenges were until I applied for a postdoctoral studies in Germany. I was privileged to apply or to get a DAAD scholarship from the German government to do a 6-month stay in University of Göttingen. And while there, I was the only Caribbean person in the research group. I didn't know the German language. And so I had to feel my way around. Luckily, most persons spoke English. And so in that research group, I felt like a fish out of water. But surprisingly, all the challenges that I faced during my PhD journey, because I learned the skills to overcome those challenges, I was able to survive, and not only survive, but do well during those 6 months. So much so that at the end of those 6 months, my professor encouraged me to apply for the Alexander von Humboldt Fellowship, which at the time I didn't even know was a prestigious fellowship offered by the German government. I applied and was successful. And I'm currently only one of 2 Jamaicans to have received that fellowship. But what have I learned is that there's no experience that we go through that is wasted. There is no challenge that we face that we can't learn lessons from. And in all of that, in all of the challenges during my PhD studies, because I was able to overcome the skills I learned to overcome them, I was able to become successful during my tenure in Germany. And so on this day, as we celebrate women and girls in science, there are 3 things that I want to leave with you. 1, develop a growth mindset. There are going to be times when you fail. There will be times when you make a mistake. There are going to be challenges. But we have to recognize that all of these happen so that help you grow. Secondly, we have to learn to pivot. And if anything, COVID has taught us that. When I look at my journey, it wasn't a straight step or a straight pathway. There were detours, there were setbacks, but in everything or in every experience that I faced, there were lessons to learn that took me on a particular trajectory or path where I am now. And so I have no regrets. Even though I didn't get into med as I had planned, I recognize that I was much more fulfilled in the area that I am now because I love to teach. And thirdly, don't be afraid to stretch. Never be afraid to try something new. When I went to Germany, people thought I was crazy because I didn't know the language I said before. I knew, had no relatives, no friend. I just picked up myself and I went to this new country. And I'm now in a second country, now in Trinidad. Never be afraid to try something new. Because in trying new things, you begin to recognize your potential. That once you stretch yourself, you're able to accomplish much more than you can even dream or imagine. Don't limit yourself. You are able to do much more than you actually believe. The journey continues. I am now here. And part of my role, I believe, is not only to teach and do research, but also mentor other women, young women, to feel that you have the ability to change this world, that you have the potential to make a difference, and that each of us have our unique gifts that we need to share so that our region can become a light and our region can become part of the global conversation as we try to come up with new ideas and new technology to make it a better place. So my encouragement to all of you as young women in science, stay grounded, stay focused. There will be setbacks, but you pick yourself up and you continue. The sky is the limit. Thank you very much.
Thank you for that, Dr. Facey. And I love those points because you really have to have a growth mindset if you want to succeed. You can't let your first failure just define the rest of your career. And I know as a woman, as you said, you had a lot of challenges, but you overcame them. And that's really inspiring. So thank you for that. I have one question from Amy. Women are often perceived as difficult or unagreeable when they exhibit strong opinions, confidence, and a high level of ambition, as opposed to men who are praised for these same traits. Conversely, women who undertake a softer approach to leadership are deemed incompetent. Have you ever witnessed or experienced this in your field? How do you think we can dispel as well as cope with these inaccurate perceptions?
I love that question because I've experienced both. So I have been assertive and considered to be too assertive. And I've also sometimes held back and overlooked. But one thing that I've recognized is that your results speak for themselves. That over time, when you do good work, you are respected. That's the important thing. Your integrity and your work will always speak for itself. So no matter what the naysayers or distractors may say, you have a goal, you go for it, and make sure that you stay grounded and you continue on that pathway.
Thank you so much for that. I'm sure Amy greatly appreciated it. So now we are right on schedule to our next speaker. I hope you all enjoyed that Dr. Facey's speech because I certainly did, and I resonated a lot with your tips. So our next speaker will be Ms. Sweelan Renaud. So let me tell you a little bit about her. Sweelan Renaud developed a passion for the marine environment during her undergrad at the University of the West Indies, St. Augustine, where she pursued a BSc Biology with specializations in marine biology, ecology, and environmental biology. Currently, she is pursuing her MSc in Biodiversity Conservation and Sustainable Development in the Caribbean through the Caribbean Catastrophe Risk Insurance Facility Scholarship Program. Both degree programs are a combination of her affinity and devotion towards ocean advocacy, conservation, and education. She is an avid volunteer in areas of environmental initiatives as she currently serves as the Communication and Social Media Manager of the Sustainable Ocean Alliance Caribbean Hub. Additionally, she is a part-time associate environmental consultant at Advisors Next Door. More of her noteworthy stints was the privilege she had in serving as the vice president of the UE Biological Society, big up UE Biosource, during her undergrad, drafting of documents towards sustainability and climate mobility projects at the Association of Caribbean States, and being instrumental in the construction and propagation of a coral reef nursery with the Environmental Research Institute, Charlottesville, geared towards climate and ocean action. Yes, Sweelan has many hats to wear, and I am so excited to hear her talk because this is my field. Welcome to the stage, Sweelan.
Hi, good afternoon, everyone. Waiting for my screen to load. In the meantime, it's lovely to be here with everyone, with you all. Happy International Women and Girls in Science. Is my screen up?
Yes, we can see it.
Okay, perfect. So I'll be sharing with you today my journey. Maybe some of you can relate because my journey is just beginning. It's just getting started and I have long ways to go. So I am Sweelan Reno. And for a quick background with respect to my journey, as Michaela said, I am an aspiring marine biologist and conservationist, and I have an affinity towards nature-based solutions in that they enhance ecosystem services that protect us and our environment. My current journey and the stints that I would have had has all fit into a really short period of time, but I believe that they have all been helpful in shaping my confidence and competence for the field, especially that imposter syndrome that tends to creep up. I think the experience here and there is shaving off a little bit of that as I move forward. So I completed my BSc at the UE St. Augustine campus, and I'm currently pursuing my master's, but I'll get a little more into that into the presentation. But the general layout of the presentation that I curated for you guys today is somewhat of a timeline of what I have been doing since I've left the university in 2019. So here we go. So my bachelor's was in biology with specializations, specializing in marine biology, ecology, and environmental biology. But at a young age, I really didn't have a clear path or depiction of what I thought, where my profession, what profession I wanted to be in. But I really wanted to do so many things. So it was so confusing. I wanted to be a doctor, lawyer, engineer, teacher, author, which is still a love that I might pursue, and an economist. And at the age of 8, I couldn't tell you. I can't tell you what an economist did. I just thought it sounded really cool. So I'm like, okay, maybe I could go with this. But my active environmental journey, I would like to say, began in Form 6, where we championed for an environmental club. This came really easy to me because I always had a passion for nature and our environment and wanted to just help out in some way. I believe that we're stewards for our environment, and I want to do my part in protecting it. So my journey, I would say, was followed up with joining and being an executive member of the UWI Biological Society, and not just only applying and being a member, but wanting to be in a position of leadership for my intentions and my ideas to trickle down. Because I always believed that being a part of the society was pivotal for me in that it opened me up to more than just the average of what I had known. So shameless plug. Michaela bigged up the Biological Society. Definitely join the society if you have nature bug. It has the potential to do such great things, and it's a great space for you to meet like-minded individuals on their environmental journey, as well as yours. So I've been told many times, and the short experiences that I've had, the environmental sector could seem daunting because it's a small pool and it is saturated. But you can make your own path or space and find your way in this field. It is definitely possible. And it was always on my bucket list to become SCUBA certified. So after my short stint as a laboratory demonstrator at the university, I decided to cop that certification. And shortly after, I would have interned at the Environmental Research Institute, Charlottesville, or ERIC, in Tobago. And ERIC is a lovely, amazing, great institute, and it's geared towards, capacity building and training, environmental education, and monitoring. And during this time, when I would have interned, the institute was executing a number of projects where we beautified the Charlottesville jetty, prepared for turtle nesting season. But my most memorable project would have been the coral restoration program, where I got to use those diving skills that I just picked up on, and where I was instrumental in the construction and propagation of a coral reef nursery for Acropora cervicornis, or staghorn coral is a common name. So soon after the internship, I applied for the Advisors Academy with Advisors Next Door. I actually met Michaela here. And essentially, this program was geared towards undergraduates. And it was a mixture of learning environmental skills for the field, networks, and all the myriad of things that you need to be successful in the environmental sector. Since it was for undergraduates, I didn't give it a second thought. I decided to still apply because I'm always racing for that experience. I recently just graduated, and any experience that you see you want to capitalize on, and it was perfect because every experience is great experience. And in being successful for the academy, which I'm so happy that I believe that it was a pivotal moment for me in that I gained a mentor and a wealth of knowledge needed to be successful in the environmental sector. I developed a myriad of skills, and I had the pleasure of executing a project where me and my colleague mapped the locations of over 1,000 trees for carbon sequestration and agriculture. Another shameless plug, look out for the Advisors Academy in 2022 during the vacation period. You will not regret it. So shortly after the academy, I was successful in my scholarship and internship applications with the Caribbean Catastrophe Risk Insurance Facility, or CRIF. And simultaneously, I began my master's at the university in biodiversity conservation and sustainable development in the Caribbean. And I had the pleasure of interning with the Association of Caribbean States Secretariat, and I was tasked with a number of assignments, but the most memorable would be the two projects: the Declaration of the Caribbean Sea as a special area in the context of sustainable development, and the Caribbean Climate Mobility Initiative, or CCMI. And these are two projects that the organization has in development ongoing at this moment. And I was honored to be privy to especially the CCMI project, because in the context of climate change, climate displacement is often overlooked. It is inevitable and it is happening. And in some regions, it's happening now as we speak. So it's important to prepare and put together policies and plans so that adaptation could take place with respect to climate displacement and climate mobility. So the academy opened me up to being a part-time associate environmental consultant and being a part of this organization. There are so many amazing projects geared towards sustainability initiatives. And I feel like it's only going to fuel my competence and confidence to tackle even harder challenges to advance in my career within the environmental sector. I'm also an avid volunteer. I am the project's intern with EcoVibes Environmental Creatives, and that is an organization that is moving the needle on environmental advocacy, education, and awareness, as well as I serve as the communications and social media manager for the Sustainable Ocean Alliance Caribbean Hub. And SOA for short is the Caribbean Hub, are a subset of a larger organization. And this organization is simply a youth-led organization committed to bolstering ocean solutions and shaping the next generation of ocean leaders. So shameless plug again. I'm putting you all to all great things. If you have a passion for your marine environment, you do not have to have necessarily done the subjects to do this. We are all stewards for our environment, so be encouraged by that alone, and be a part of Ocean Action for Climate Action, be a part of ocean protection, and be a part of youth in our Caribbean region leading the waves of change. So my journey has only just begun, and it's an exciting time. I implore anyone listening as well, and advice that I will have is to always find time to volunteer, especially in your early on stages, just like me. It definitely opens you up to opportunities, connections, and I think it helps to streamline your journey or your part, if you're having difficulties finding out what that is. And with respect to the environmental and marine sciences, women are more and more becoming involved in the environmental science field. My internships, my classes in undergrad, in postgrad, really you would find your male counterpart there. I have classes where it's just females. So it's often associated with hunter-gatherer days where the females would be the nurturers, the ones taking care of the children, and the men are out there hunting. So be encouraged. There is space for women in science and women in the environmental and marine science field. And that is my time, and I hope I have inspired someone today.
Yes, you certainly have, Sweelan. And yeah, I just want to say women were also hunters back in the day. I found some National Geographic research the other day. So women can play many different roles and they can do many different things, and that's what this is about. So thank you very much, Sweelan. And yes, volunteering is very important, I would say. As Sweelan mentioned, we did an internship together, and our mentor, Mr. Ryan Asu, he always says, your 20s are your learning years and your 30s are your earning years. And volunteering is a great way to learn. So thank you very much, Sweelan. And I want to ask you one question before we head on to the next person. I'm sorry, how have your interactions been with other women in STEM? Have they been encouraging or discouraging? Do you notice a trend there?
So now coming out of undergrad, I would say that there are difficulties finding opportunities within the environmental sector. So I do not have a lot of experience in with that respect, but I could speak on a recent meeting that I would have had with a very busy lady, Dr. Druman, the IMA director, and I'm in the process of, figuring out what it is I want to do for my research project. Reached out to her because she has an affinity for nature-based solutions, and that is also where it is I would like to go. And was very shocked to have heard back from her, I guess, because I know she's a very busy woman. And she was so kind and warm and welcoming. And I would definitely say she's definitely a role model as well, like Dr. Gobin and Dr. Amon. So I think it depends on your experience and who you would have interacted with. But from my experience thus far, I would have had a good experience. And even if you have a bad experience, don't let that affect you. There are people out there that are willing to help. And she definitely made mention of, reaching back out to her anytime and wanting to help as well. So I think it really does depend on your experience, and don't be discouraged if that isn't your experience. If you have a passion and you want to get something done, then get it done.
Okay, thank you. And we shall move swiftly on to our next speaker, Dr. Sharice Griffith-Charles. Dr. Sharice Griffith-Charles is a lecturer, senior lecturer in cadastral systems, geomatics, and land administration in the Department of Geomatics Engineering and Land Management in the Faculty of Engineering. She is currently also the Deputy Dean for Undergraduate Student Affairs in the Faculty of Engineering at the University of the West Indies, St. Augustine. Her research interests are in land registration systems, land administration, and communal tenure, especially family land. She has served as consultant, conducted research, and published papers on inter alia land survey legislation, the impact and sustainability of land titling, land tenure issues, regularizing informal occupants of land, socioeconomic impacts of land adjudication and registration, LADM or STDM, and land policy, if you know what all those things are. She was only the second female to be licensed to perform cadastral surveying in Trinidad and Tobago, and is currently registered as a professional surveyor with the Land Survey Board of Trinidad and Tobago. She is a fellow of the Royal Institution of Chartered Surveyors and a member of the Institute of Surveyors of Trinidad and Tobago. So we have our very own lecturer from the Faculty of Engineering. Take it away, Dr. Griffith-Charles.
Okay, thank you very much for that introduction. And good afternoon to all, and thanks very much to the organizers of the event for inviting me. Thanks to the Guild and members and students and all the other participants as well for being here. And also all who might be interested and viewing elsewhere. So since it has been a long journey, I'm probably one of the more mature persons on the panel. So I'll try to focus on areas where gender has had an impact on my being in engineering, and also since engineering is such a broad area. All right, so I heard someone else mention that they went to Naparima Girls High School. I began my journey in Naparima Girls High School, which is an all-female environment. It was even more so at that time. Most of the teachers were female. Probably there were 2, if I can remember, male teachers, and they were like, they stood out like a sore thumb in the environment. So in that environment, I was very sheltered at that time. Yes, you may have heard about women's liberation at that time, but it was a topic for social sciences and for discussions in our debate classes, and not really something that you felt was impacting on your world. So you did your subjects, whether they be sciences, math, whatever you wanted to do, whatever was your passion, and did not think that there was any limit to what you could do. There were no limits for you in your little world. And that is the way it was for me. You see how old the picture looks. And then immediately after coming out of that environment, I got a job while I tried to figure out which direction I wanted to go, because my tastes were rather, and my passions were rather eclectic. I like sciences and also art and languages. And so I was trying to figure myself out. But I got a job at Texaco then, which is then became known as Petrotrin. And it was idyllic for me because it married art and mathematics. I spent my days at a drawing table like this. And I prepared maps, and everything was quite manual at that time. So I was able to use a paintbrush to color in all the anticlines and synclines and all the geographic or geological structures where the oil was supposed to be found based on the data provided by geologists. So it was really an ideal area for me, and I felt like I could stay there. But the rude awakening was that coming out of an all-female environment, I was the only woman amongst probably about 30 or 35 men in a large drawing office. So it was a big shock, a rude awakening. And also what was a rude awakening as well was the amount of, well, now I know, or subsequently to that, I knew it was sexual harassment. But at that time, it wasn't discussed very readily. People just felt men were men, and men were expected to be a certain way, and women were women and expected to be a certain way. So there was a lot of propositioning and things like that. And at that time, you sort of internalized it and kept it to yourself, and it was a kind of source of shame that people would speak to you in this way. Now, I'm glad that in many of our situations, we discuss sexual harassment more openly, and we have many more opportunities, many more resources to protect you from this type of thing. But at that time, it was not so prevalent, at least the resources and the assistance. But otherwise, it was a great job, and it made me even more attuned and passionate about marrying the math and the art. And to cartography, to prepare, which is preparation of maps, I realized that you had to do something surrounding land surveying, and a new course, a new program was developed at the University of the West Indies, and I went to do that degree. And that was a very different environment. There was no more of the sexual harassment and all of that. So there now you had a more comfortable existence. When I left the program, I went into the state performing land surveying. And so I would be out in the field with my own field gang of 4 or 5 men. But it was a much more comfortable existence for some reason. I was respected, and I visited all parts of Trinidad and Tobago and performed surveys. And these pictures are actually from a later period when I entered the UB after doing my MPhil in cartography, and I started working at the UB, and it took me to different parts of the world, either attending conferences or participating in conferences in related areas of land surveying. These pictures are actually in Montserrat, where we had a field team and we were performing surveys, land surveys for the citizens in the country. So that went on, and as was said in the introduction, I was only the second female to be licensed to perform land surveying in Trinidad and Tobago. So this is just a copy of the last year's list of land surveyors. And since the numbering system is chronological based on when you got your license, you see that I was one of the first. The person who was ahead of me, the first one, she subsequently left the country, so she's not there. But if you go through, subsequent to my licensing, other women came into the field, and that's good, but you see it's still a very small minority. It's still achieving a few women coming into the field, and that's good, right? But in the profession, it still is that we are a small minority. This is one of a professional meeting, and you can probably just see just 1 or maybe 2 women amongst all the men. So it's still an area that women can get into if they so choose to. Right, and this is also a management committee, where again you're a minority in that, but it does provide for leadership roles in the profession and in advancing the profession of land surveying. On campus as well, we are seeing an increase, at least in some of the departments, some of the areas of engineering, where more and more women are getting into it. But it still is that in some areas that we have a quarter of the students are female, or the largest maybe probably a third in chemical engineering, right? Because it is felt that it is a rather physical activity, and I don't know whether it is that people feel people are not channeling women into engineering, or they themselves feel that they would not be able to survive in engineering. But certainly it is an area that is broad, as I said, and even in particular in land surveying itself, there are so many different areas that you can get into, even if you don't want the physical nature of it. There's all areas of mapping. I myself focus on land administration, inland tenure, and mapping areas, or mapping tenure for all people, landowners. And again, internationally, we also have that same kind of a dearth of women. This is, well, me at an international conference on 3D cadasters, which is preparation of information systems for housing information on land tenure and land ownership. And you see the majority of them are male. There are some women. And you'd find that in the European context, but you'll also find that there are very few people of color. I'm the only Black person in this environment here, but the other mostly Asian people there, but they're still the minority. But we find that internationally, because diversity and inclusion are so on the front burner, that you are now invited to come into these areas of endeavor. And so you should take these opportunities and grasp them. I always feel that every opportunity, every challenge is an opportunity. So the stereotypes that we've faced in engineering is that people say that women do not like math, women do not like the physical or the outdoor jobs, which are prevalent in engineering. And yes, it is that you may have to shape your day to accommodate the fact that you're a woman in a male-dominated profession. But certainly now women can voice their own opinion and voice the fact that accommodation should be made for their position in the workspace. I've met stereotypes such as women are better at administrative report writing aspects of the job, and even when we're doing field work, a lot of field work in the state, they would say, well, if you're doing office work and report writing, that's for the women, we will stay in the field. And now even in academia, it is felt that the women are more naturally maternal, and therefore we should do all the non-technical advising, mentoring, and counseling of students. And we have to try to get away from that, because if many of the students are male, we should have them be mentored by, they can be mentored by male lecturers and people in the profession as well. And so I feel that we should be focusing on getting people into STEM. We now say STEAM and add some art in it, because I do like art. And so this picture here is from a project. I received a Fulbright scholarship to do my PhD, which was done at the University of Florida. And so I was also thrust into this world of being a minority in a larger space. But coming out of the Fulbright scholarship, I now belong to the Fulbright Alumni Association, where we try to give back to the society. And we recently, well, it's still ongoing. We're doing a project in the Success Laventille School, secondary school, where we're trying to foster that love and appreciation of math on STEM in the students. So I would urge you to also try to foster that love and appreciation for math and STEM in the younger ones. Now, yes, we can focus on the female students, but now that we are aware that gender is like a continuum, we should be focusing on trying to nurture all students to like STEM and to become more proficient in STEM by doing these types of fun play type activities where they can see the nexus between math and shapes and forms. So what can we women do? We can support other women, speak up about discrimination. It's a vastly different area now than way back when I was rudely awakened in my first job. We can speak up about it. As I said, we have resources and try to have any issues addressed. Now, as the Deputy Dean, I have had students come to me and said that they were in uncomfortable situations and they wanted it addressed. Unfortunately, in our processes, you have to come forward, you have to say who you are and actually put it in writing. And so in that one case, the student was not willing to go forward with addressing the situation. And even though there was another student who felt that she had also been victimized and she had already graduated, she still felt that it would affect her career. And so there is that difficulty. So I want to ask people on the Guild, do they feel or have they heard about any of these instances of sexual harassment where the victims did not want to come forward because of the processes? What can we do to make the process more accommodating for people, for students? But we have to continue to communicate about gender in our fields, in STEM and in all fields, but not in the adversarial manner that is common with Facebook and social media now. We need to empathize. So instead of antagonizing somebody who we feel that does not understand our situation, instead of calling them a TERF or whatever it is, we should empathize that they have had an upbringing that made them come to a particular position, and we need to therefore discuss what are the implications of their upbringing and their knowledge and their understanding to everybody's equity and everybody's feeling of comfort. Open the gender discussion to all persons so that we can discuss, present all sides, present all perspectives, because we're not at the end of this journey. I began with saying that at that time, people didn't discuss gender. Now we have much more information available, discussing gender in the workplace, how it impacts on people, but we still are not at the end of the journey, and we need to continue the discussion. Once you are discussing, people can understand, people can go to a better understanding, and we can go forward. So it is a continuation, it's not the end. Continue the discussion, continue exploring gender and gender differences and what we can do to accommodate others in our spaces. Thank you for having me.
Thank you so much, Dr. Griffith Charles. That was a really excellent presentation because you brought up a lot of important points about, especially, being of a minority group in your field, especially the differences are much more stark in engineering than in some of our fields in FST. So thank you so much. And I would also like to continue on one point that you were saying about teaching girls, but not only girls, everyone having the opportunities to learn the same the same things, instead of streaming boys into math and girls one way. Everybody should have the same opportunities because that definitely affects your brain and how you think and what opportunities that you might expose yourself to. So thank you so much again. And we will get back to you with some questions in the question and answer segment. But for now, we will move on to our next speaker, and our final speaker, Miss Jessie Ram Kalawan. I know some of you may know her pretty well. She is an academic, research enthusiast, and animal lover. Me too. I love animals. Throughout her life, she has always possessed a love for learning and developing new skills. While her passions include language and literature, her professional and academic focus is STEM. After graduating from St. Augustine Girls High School with an open scholarship, she chose to pursue physics, a subject which combined her love for mathematics and science at the UWI. After graduating with an overall GPA of 4.29, the highest in her faculty's graduating class, she began her master's degree in biomedical physics. Her professional experience since completing her BSc includes lab demonstrating, researching, private tutoring, and academic course design and coordination with international and regional institutions such as FOOD, PAHO, and universities around the world. Currently, Ms. Ram Kalawan is employed in the physics department at the Brian Lara Cancer Treatment Center, which specializes in radiotherapy treatment planning, verification, and quality assurance. Her future goals are to obtain board certification as a medical physicist and use her knowledge to further develop the field in Trinidad, clinically and education-wise. It is her hope that through diligence, persistence, and dedication, she will make a positive impact in local healthcare and training. I welcome you, Jessie, to the floor.
Thank you, Michaela, and thank you for having me here today. I'm really excited to be on this panel. I just want to say hi, everyone who's tuned in. I hope that you all are enjoying your Friday evening. It's a great way to spend a Friday evening. So I'm going to keep my talk or my piece short. I'm basically going to give you an insight into what it was like for me moving from an undergraduate position to a professional and clinical role in STEM. So as you know, I'm a physicist at Brian Lara Cancer Treatment Center. So a huge part of physics and science and mathematics is actually in cancer treatment and radiotherapy. A lot of people don't know, but without mathematics and physics, you don't have any radiotherapy. So that is the whole basis behind it. So STEM is really, really important in the medical field as well. It's not just engineering and computer science and all of these things. Overall, I would say that I actually had a really positive experience being a woman in a STEM field at the University of the West Indies. My undergraduate experience was honestly really fantastic. I had a lot of respect from my colleagues, from my lecturers. My opinions and my voice was regularly heard. I could share my thoughts and my ideas, and they were always taken seriously. I was taken seriously, which I think had a lot to do with my academic merits. For those of you all who know me, you'll know that I am an overachiever. So I tend to work extremely, extremely hard and, get all of the good grades and all of that. That's always been my personality. And in an academic setting, such as UE, when you are a high achiever, it is very easy to command respect and to be taken seriously by your colleagues. Hence why my experience was so very, very positive and encouraged. And I was constantly encouraged to go further and to do better and to pursue to feel more like questioned, or people did not regularly question my abilities. However, when I moved out of the purely academic realm, is when I kind of got a bit of a reality check. You all can probably tell I'm a very short, small statured. I'm not very assuming. I'm not very argumentative. I'm not very assertive. And that kind of worked to my disadvantage in my previous jobs when I came out of the field. When I came out of my undergraduate degree, because what started happening was that I was a young woman without a lot of experience entering a field that was very much dominated by male colleagues. And what tended to happen in a lot of my previous experience was that because of your youth, your lack of experience, all of that, you tended not to be taken very seriously unless you were extremely assertive or extremely loud or demanding or insisting, which I was not. So it was very easy for other colleagues to talk over me or to talk around me, to kind of doubt that I knew what I was doing, or to doubt the integrity or the quality of my work. In some of my previous jobs that I had, I quickly moved into leadership roles due to my boss or my superior being I had a very strong woman as my superior, and she quickly moved me into leadership roles. However, when I moved into those leadership roles and I came into roles where I would be leading a team of, professors, all who were predominantly male, a lot older than me, the overall kind of impression that a lot of them had was, this little girl is trying to, instruct me or tell me what to do. And it was that I was not really being taken seriously as a professional. So I worked twice as hard, 3 times as hard as my colleagues. I worked extremely hard until my work was impeccable and unquestionable. And I really had to prove myself. And when I began to really, really prove myself and to show my prowess and to really work hard is when things began to change in my previous workplace. When I moved out of there and I moved to where I am now, luckily my direct superior is a woman. She's very highly qualified and she's very highly respected. So as a result of that, some of that, by working underneath a woman who is very respected throughout the entire country in your field, some of that respect automatically goes on to you. People automatically give you some of that respect. However, I absolutely know for a fact that if it was not for her, I probably would not be seen as I am now. And this is an issue that I have realized a lot of women actually face moving into STEM fields, is that you have to work extremely hard to be taken seriously. You need to prove your worthiness. You need to prove that you are capable. You need to prove yourself a lot more than your male counterparts have to. I've seen a lot of my male counterparts, same thing, qualifications, no experience, and they are automatically given respect. They are automatically seen as equals purely because of the fact that they are, they are a little bit more commanding or a little bit more assertive. They are not expected to be submissive. They are not expected to just take instructions without questioning them. They are not expected to question the decisions of, women are not expected to question the decisions of those who are more experienced than them, I should say. But it's typically when your male counterpart does it, people say it as, oh, he is very ambitious, he knows what he's doing, he has great ideas. And then when you do it, when you as a woman do it, they will say, oh, she thinks she knows everything and she's so irritating, or she doesn't know what she's talking about. And it can be very difficult to be seen as a professional in a STEM field because it's not a stereotypically female job. However, it is very important that you make that space for yourself, even though it can be difficult, even though you can feel really uncomfortable at times, or you can be afraid to speak up and say, hey, I think this is not correct, or I have a better approach. You can be afraid to speak up. You can be afraid that people will see you as argumentative or demanding. And it's okay if you're afraid, but it's important for you to still speak up. I have been fortunate to have very strong female mentors that helped to carve out that space for me throughout my undergraduate degree, throughout my postgraduate, throughout all of my work experiences, and even now. I have very strong female mentors. And the reason that that is important is because they have made it a little bit easier for me. I am sure that they had to work even harder than I did. I'm sure that they have had to be extremely assertive. I've seen it firsthand where, maybe a male counterpart might try to speak over them or not really take what they're saying seriously, and they have to really put their foot down and command respect. But in doing that, it has made it a little bit easier for me. And I plan to do that as well. I plan to work on commanding respect, on being assertive enough when I know, because the thing is, we as women, we as professionals, we need to avoid doubting ourselves. We need to be confident in ourselves. We need to recognize that our voices are extremely important as well, and we need to make that space for ourselves so that future generations of women in STEM can move forward as well and struggle less than we do. So every time you make a space for yourself and you make your voice heard and you make yourself seen, you're making it a little bit easier for somebody to come after you and enter that space as well, which I think is extremely, extremely important. And I have personally been seeing a lot of growth in terms of women who are entering the physics field and pursuing medical physics, which I think is really wonderful. Sometimes people can try to discourage you from doing it because well, this job requires a lot of heavy lifting. You have to lift a lot of objects. You need to work late nights. Sometimes it's not really cut out for a woman. It's difficult for a woman to do. But a lot of us are in this field now. Women are joining the field, and you can do anything that you put your mind to. It doesn't matter if there's heavy lifting. It doesn't matter if somebody says, hey, a guy is better for this job because they can stay late, or it doesn't matter. If you put your mind to it and you want to do it and you love what you are doing, you can do anything that your male counterparts can do. So I guess what I'm trying to say, or in summary, what I would like to say to you all is, don't let anybody discourage you from entering a field that is stereotypically or predominantly male. There is space for you there and you can excel. And other women are working hard to pave the way for you. And it's important for us all to work together to continue to pave the way for women to work in STEM fields and be acknowledged as equals in all of the fields. Because at the end of the day, I can do the job, my male counterparts can do the job, we can all work as professionals together. There's no reason that one person should be acknowledged more than the other. We are all professionals and we can all get the job done and we can all excel. There's room for everybody. So that's it. And thank you all for having me this evening. I hope I didn't go over time too much.
No, that's totally fine because I was enjoying your talk, and I'm sure we all enjoyed it. So I have a bunch of questions, but I can't ask all of them. So let me see. Okay, so I had one question that I wanted to ask. So I know you were talking about in your career, a lot of people didn't respect you, even though you had a lot of academic merit. So, we know about imposter syndrome. What would you say that you would have experienced that, and how did you motivate yourself to get out of that? And also, for other women in similar positions, how did you motivate yourself?
So this is a really good question. It's also really, really important, I think, because when I was in my undergraduate degree, I was fully sure of myself all the time. You could not tell me anything. I completely was absolutely sure of myself 24/7. In my work experience, however, yes, definitely I've experienced imposter syndrome. There have been many, many times where I will admit, have sat and cried and said, I'm not supposed to be here. It seems like I don't know what I'm doing. I am just in something that is not for me. I don't deserve to be here. And that is a struggle that I think a lot of us have dealt with or maybe are dealing with. How did I kind of move past that? First, I had to accept that there are always things to learn. You can always learn. And second, I actually had a moment where I was writing up my CV. I was doing up my entire CV and I was listing all of the things that I had done, all of the experiences that I had had. And I looked at my CV and I was like, how am I sitting here and telling myself that, oh, well, I don't know what I'm doing just because somebody else has told me, you don't know, but I can fully see my qualifications. I can see the work products that I've produced and they are good. I also had a lot of support. and people who constantly reminded me that I deserve to be where I am and that I work hard to be where I am. And that's something that I think a lot of us as women, I think a lot of us have very, very high standards for ourselves. We're always thinking it's not good enough. We have to do better. But we have to realize once you have given your time and you have put in your effort, you have done a good job. You don't need to constantly push yourself over the edge just to be good enough. You have studied, you've put yourself out there, you've put in your effort and time, you are worthy and you deserve that respect. You are a professional and you can't let the opinions of others tell you otherwise.
Thank you for that. And I have one more question. So, us here at FST Student Council and, in general at UWI, we are working to eradicate those stereotypes to encourage women to enter STEM. So, I got a question. Would you be interested in being part of a collaborative body in the department dedicated to increasing and improving opportunities for women in physics?
Oh, yes, definitely. I think that there's a lot of room for women in physics. I'm going to be very honest. I'm going to tell you, women are fantastic at math, even though it has predominantly been, as Dr. Charis Griffith Charles said, even though that it's been stereotypically said that, this is a job for men and whatnot. I'm not saying that men are not great at math. They are, but there's no reason for anyone to say that women are not fantastic at math. We are. Come on, women's brains are a wonderful thing, right? So definitely there's a lot of space for women in physics, and I would love to see more and more women entering the field.
Okay, thank you. So thank you everybody for your presentations. They were really excellently done. I loved hearing from all of y'all. So yes, big up mathematics and women in maths specifically. So I would like to, I see Dr. Sankar there. I would like to now move it on to the question and answer segment. I know we have like 4 minutes left, but I wanted to, if no one else has any questions, I wanted to ask Dr. Griffith Charles a question in particular because your experience has been unique as all of ours have been, especially you would have been like a token person, as you said, in a lot of spaces in engineering, especially when you went away, being the only woman of color at a lot of those conferences. So how did you deal with that? And do you have any words of advice?
Well, sometimes even when they reach out to you and they would like to diversify, you get resentment from people who feel that that space should not have gone to you. And I've had people say that to me, that I'm only there because I'm Black and I'm a woman. And I say, well, no, this is just one opportunity. Think of all the many people who are not getting an opportunity, and especially if you're a token. It means that once you have one token, then you've shut out any opportunity for any other person who would be very worthy of being there. So I have to discuss it with them. I don't let it slide. Tell them, communicate to them, why do you feel that way about it? Give them some more information and make them understand your perspective, because it is very difficult to be just there to represent and then shutting out a lot of people who are supposed to be there as well.
Yes, I totally hear that. That is that's a hard position to be in, and definitely admire you for that. And I don't know if anybody else has any other questions, but if you don't, I'm gonna ask one because we have a superb panel here. And they've only got a limited amount of time. So if not, I'm gonna ask to everybody, have you witnessed or experienced women in STEM exhibiting internalized misogyny, which is where they shame and doubt and undervalue other women? Do you believe that internalized misogyny is a major factor in deterring women from thriving in STEM? Anybody want to take that one? Jessie, I see.
Okay, I will take it. So I've had a lot of job interviews since the pandemic started. I've done many job interviews. And a lot of the times these interviewers were women, fellow women involved in academic fields, involved in STEM. And what I found was very strange is that I got the question quite a couple of times when they learned that I was young and unmarried. One of the first questions that the interviewer would ask is, well, are you planning on getting married? Are you planning on having children? And I would automatically be like, well, yeah, but you know, it's not as important as work. And it was common in these interviews to be told, well, you know that having children and being married is not a reason to skip on your work. And I myself would feel kind of ashamed for wanting a family, or feel like I have to say, oh no, well, I don't care to have a family, I don't care to have children, I only want to work, because that seemed like what they wanted to hear, which was very discouraging, because these are fellow women in the STEM field, essentially making me feel ashamed for wanting to just have a normal family life as well, making me feel like I have to care about work and work alone, otherwise I'm not worthy of being in this space. And I think that is a product definitely of internalized misogyny that a lot of women still deal with today. And it is unfortunate, but it hopefully it is something that will be changing with the coming generations.
Wow, thank you for that. Dr. Sanka, I see you have your hand.
Yes, as others, it may seem I actually experienced what Jessie also spoke about in the past. But on the other side of the coin now, I would just like to mention one of my role model in the department is she's the only female lecturer there now, and she's the senior lecturer in mathematics, Dr. Donna Dyer. So some of you are maybe familiar with her. She's the only female full-time academic staff there. I am an instructor, and we have also 2 other TAs and 2 other female demonstrators as part of our team. But she has been a pillar of strength to me, and of always, guiding and telling me what it's like, or whatever I experience. She always say, well, she has similar experiences and how to cope and how to navigate different situations that I'm facing. And I must say that even as the undergraduate student as well, she was always very patient and kind. Like, I remember one time, 5 minutes before office hours finished, my friend and I, we went to her, and I was expecting, well, she would say, come back tomorrow. But no, she sat and she went through with us and took the extra time, even though it was beyond the office hours. And that really portrayed to me her commitment. And I wanted to be like that, I wanted to be that person who would guide other persons and would be passionate too about things. So
Thank you for that wonderful mention. I see Dr. Griffith Charles. You can go
I
ahead.
want to point out that happens a lot in the public service, and because there are a lot of women who have to balance their family life and their work and everything, so they would sometimes want to collect pick their children up and bring them back to the office and continue working. And I used to do that at one point, and someone would say, so why do we have to listen to all these children talking and behaving badly in the office, and why doesn't this? And they would direct their anger toward the mothers who did this. But I made it a point to have a discussion with these people, because some of them would be single and they don't have the children, they're not in that don't have that experience. But it is a way of opening up a discussion. Why do you feel that way? Why are you not directing the anger towards probably they have a father and their father is not being pushed into this into having that challenge? So every opportunity for discussion, I think, the discussion should be engaged in, because people may not have seen it from that perspective.
Yes, that's so true. You know, they always might put the blame on the woman, but not involving the father. So, and there is always a father involved. So thank you so much for these very salient points and this amazing discussion. If nobody has any more questions, I will not prolong it anymore. In the meantime, I would like to say that this was a collaborative event from the FSD Student Council and the Engineering Student Society. They would have been featured yesterday as well. So thank you all for coming. Thank you all for sharing your experiences. I know that it is not the easiest thing to do, to share, because it can be hard, what you went through. But thank you so much, because I'm sure you have inspired not even just one person, but many. You've certainly inspired me. So thank you all for your time. And I would just like to also thank all of the event organizers. I did not say them yesterday, but I would like to name drop some people today. Specifically, Mr. Jeremiah Matura, the FSD Student Council President. He facilitated this event, and he was always behind having this. And that's one important point I also wanted to bring up. This event is not just for women to come and view, to feel empowered. Yes, it is for that, but also everyone needs to, support and understand the struggles and challenges of women in STEM. And so that's where men should use their roles to help and support women as well. And I would like to also thank my very hardworking event committee, Ms. Nashali Miraj, Ms. Amara Bihari, Kyra Paul, Ms. Amy Ramdat, Ms. Anna Marie Along. All of y'all, thank you. And thank you to our tech guy, Mr. Savan Phillip, as well as our event coordinator, Mr. Justin Manarat. And if I missed out anybody, I'm sorry. But thank you all to the whole student council and everybody who facilitated this event. And I'd just like to wrap it up there. Thank you all again for coming, and we'll see you next time.